Well, hello, everybody. It is your favorite day of the week. Another day of a lifetime of Hallmark. I am Les Kirkendall-Barrett. Hello, Jason Bowers.
Hello, Les Kirkendall-Barrett.
And hello, Kurt Fitzpatrick.
Hello, Les Kirkendall-Barrett, and hello, Jason Bowers.
We take movies from both Lifetime and the Hallmark Channel and try to make sense of them.
We're not very successful, though, because they don't often make sense, but they are fun to watch.
And we go down all kinds of rabbit holes. We talk about Angelian quite a bit. We talk about the show Enos.
June Squibb. We are team June Squibb all the way.
And we have Black China news every single episode.
So with that in mind, why don't you listen to A Lifetime of Hallmark? You can listen wherever you get your favorite podcasts. This is a Kirkendall-Barrett presentation. Well, hello everybody. It is your favorite day of the week. It is time for another episode of the Reality Reading Rainbow. Yes, the Triple R, where I talk about books written by reality stars, especially those from the Bravo channel, and try to make sense of them. I also do interviews, and we're going to get started in 1 second. I just wanted to do a few little announcements. First and foremost, I am on Patreon. Now, reading these books for this podcast, it costs a little money. So I have set up a Patreon to help me pay for these books. Now, it is not a requirement. I understand that times are tough for a lot of us. So if you don't have the bucks to throw to a Patreon, hey, no problem. I would rather have you here listening to the podcast. But if you do have a few extra bucks, I would love for you to consider throwing that on to Patreon. I have several tiers ranging from $3 a month and up, and you get some perks, you get some prizes, you get to be a part of our Bravo book club, which actually we had our first one on Clubhouse last month, and it was a lot of fun. And so yeah, if you can throw some bucks to Patreon, go to patreon.com/therealityreadingrainbow. patreon.com/therealityreadingrainbow. We also have a Reality Reading Rainbow Facebook page. It's growing quite nicely, so why don't you mosey on over to Facebook and join the Reality Reading Rainbow Facebook page. If you want to send me an email, you can send me an email at therealityreadingrainbow@gmail.com, and I do take book suggestions. As a matter of fact, some of the best books that I've read on this podcast are listener suggestions, so feel free to suggest away. And, one more thing. Okay, so this podcast was recorded before the Jen Shah arrest. So, we talk about Jen Shah in the podcast, but, oh my God, okay, how ironic is this? I'm talking about the Jen Shah arrest and, like, a police car drives by my house with full sirens. Hey, Jen Shah! Anyway, so I am aware of the Jen Shah arrest. So just know that I wasn't slacking on the news or anything. It just took me a while to edit this podcast and get it out. And what else? That's about it. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Bye.
Hello and welcome to Breaking Down Bad Books, a podcast analysing trashy bestsellers from a literary perspective. Following my breakdown of Stephenie Meyer's Twilight, I'll be digging deep into the raunchy Twilight fanfic turned erotic romance, 50 Shades of Grey. although I'm not sure romance is the best word to use. Join me every Monday and Friday for chapter-by-chapter analysis of the book that Salman Rushdie said made Twilight look like War and Peace. You can listen on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, or visit breakingdownbadbooks.com for all the listen links and contact information. I have a feeling that it's going to get awkward, but let's get through this together. Happy reading!
Well, hello, everybody. It is your favorite day of the week. It is time for another episode of the Reality Reading Rainbow, where I talk about books written by reality stars and try to make sense of them. I also do interviews as well. I am your host, Les Kirkendall Barrett, and we actually have a special guest today. Now, I know I mentioned it on the last podcast. I have been doing a lot of Clubhouse lately, and I've been having a blast. And I have been making new podcaster friends because if you go onto Clubhouse, there are a lot of great Bravo chat rooms. And so this is a new friend that I made, and he hosts the Church of Housewives Podcast. Welcome, my friend, Blake Coelho. Hey, Blake.
Hey, Les, how are you?
I am good. Hey, tell us a little bit about your podcast.
Yeah, of course. Well, first of all, I'm so excited to be here. Like you said, it's been so fun getting to know everyone on Clubhouse and make new friends. But yeah, I host a podcast called the Church of Housewives. You can find us anywhere you listen to podcasts. You can also follow us on social media. All of our social media accounts are at Housewives Amen. So I host the show with two of my friends. We call ourselves the Housewives Homies, my buddies Kendall and Will. And we all linked up a few years ago just over our love for the Housewives and all things Bravo. And, we decided to start a podcast, and it's really just the three of us sitting around. There's a lot of cocktails involved usually. And we recap, each week's episodes and, whatever breaking news has come out, in the Bravo verse. And yeah, it's just a lot of fun. I mean, I think what's so fun about doing a podcast with two of my friends is that we always have completely different opinions on everything. Like every housewife feud, none of us agree. And so it's a lot of debating. Sometimes it gets kind of heated. Like we get really into
really?
it. I mean, not
nice.
like never anything bad, but like, I don't know, especially in the past couple years, I feel like, a lot of the storylines have gotten kind of heavy on the housewives, and they touch on really intense issues.
Yes.
So it strikes a nerve with a lot of people. A lot of emotions are riled up. So yeah, we definitely have some disagreements, but it's a blast. It's so much fun. And we've had a bunch of the housewives on the podcast.
Nice.
Yeah, we've interviewed Leanne. We've interviewed Tamara Judge, who is just amazing. I've actually become pretty tight with her and talk with her often.
Nice.
When OC was still on, I would DM her all the time and get the behind the scenes scoop.
Right.
We've talked to Tiffany Moon, we've talked to Carrie Brittingham. Recently, we talked to Elizabeth Vargas, who was giving us some casting tea, which I don't know if I believe.
Like for next season coming up?
Yeah. I mean, she was basically telling me that all of them are coming back. But this was before Andy announced that no decisions have been made. So I think she just was, I don't know, maybe trying to send some good vibes out into the universe for herself.
Right.
Yeah. But no, I mean, it's been so much fun. My favorite part of doing the podcast, though, honestly, has been getting to connect with other podcasters and listeners and fans of Bravo, because it's just such a cool community, and I'm so happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, it's so crazy with Clubhouse. I've met more fellow podcasters in the past 2 weeks than I have in the 7 months I have been doing this. And what I think is cool is, yeah, we have different opinions, but a lot of the major stuff we all agree on pretty much, hands down.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And I also think, with Clubhouse in particular, it's so great because you are using your voice. And I feel like it does kind of connect you to one another in a different way. You know, most social media, we're so removed, and you can leave a comment, but it's not the same as, you know, talking face to face or voice to voice. And so I feel like when people have different opinions, like on Twitter, it gets crazy. Like people on Twitter are so nasty to each other. Like whether you're team Jackie or team Teresa, like they're calling each other names and calling each other idiots and morons and stuff. That doesn't happen on Clubhouse. All of the conversations I've been a part of, they're so respectful. They're really like kind-hearted and genuine, but they're still heavy, and they're meaningful conversations, and they're important conversations. So I've been having a ball. I mean, I've only been on Clubhouse for 2 or 3 weeks now myself, and I've just been loving it.
So I think so. Wow. So we basically started around the same time then.
Yeah, probably.
And it's so funny that you talk about Twitter, because I belong to. Do you belong to any Bravo Facebook groups? And you don't have to name them.
I do. And I used to be in more than I am now, because I found that they were just like really toxic, and there was a lot of like, it's one thing to have opinions, but a lot of the things that were being said were like really nasty. And I mean, I saw a lot of stuff that was racist, a lot of stuff that was homophobic, a lot of stuff that was body shaming, just stuff that it's like, that's not the kind of housewives conversations I want to have. Like I can talk about how, like, you know, Teresa's dumb, like whatever, but I'm not going to comment on like, you know, her like people's body image. It's just the stuff that got kind of gross on Facebook. And I see a lot of it on Twitter too.
Yeah, because I used to belong to a bunch of Bravo groups. And yeah, it was the same. It got really toxic. It got really dark. You know, there were some groups where people would gang up on people. And so I have basically cut my groups down to like 2. And you know, it's a lot better that way. As a matter of fact, this podcast was originated in a Facebook group.
Oh, okay.
Because what happened is I was in a thrift store, and I found Denise Richards' book for $1.
Amazing.
And so I just started reading it, and started every day I would do a quote or give an update from the book. And people are like, you need to turn that into a podcast. And that's how this podcast was born, you know.
I mean, it really is a genius concept.
It's crazy though, because I had no idea just how into it the Bravo fans are. It's like, it blows my mind. It really does.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like politics. Like people live or die by, you know, their politician. I feel like it's the same with their favorite Bravo lebs. Yeah, I mean, you see it a lot with like the LVP stands, and like, again, I've seen it so much with the whole Teresa versus Jackie thing, or Kenya versus Portia. Like people really pick sides. And for me, I mean, I obviously pick sides, and I obviously have housewives that I gravitate towards and that I resonate with. And there are some that I just cannot stand at all. But I understand that like it's a show and it's for entertainment. And if someone doesn't agree with me, you know, on who was right, you know, in LVP versus Kyle Richards, like I'm not going to hate them because of that.
Right.
It's so silly.
Right. Exactly. And it's like, you know, yes, they are on the show, but then we really don't know behind the scenes how much is for the camera and how much is really happening. And another thing that someone told me, who's kind of in the know with production, is he says a lot of times the fights that they're having on camera it's not about the fight they're having on camera. It's a lot of times it's about something behind the scenes that they can't talk about.
Right. And I think we saw that a lot in the earlier seasons, especially. I feel like recently they've broken the fourth wall a lot more. And so we're hearing like, oh, you set this storyline up, or, oh, you leaked this to the press. Like we're seeing that a lot more. But yeah, I definitely think in the earlier seasons, especially, those were the things that were going on behind the scenes, and they couldn't talk about it. They couldn't break the fourth wall. They couldn't be like, you told a producer this and that. So they had to, you know, fight over petty bullshit. But the you know, hate that they had for each other was so much deeper than that.
Yeah, because someone mentioned to me that like one of the fights is you're getting more money than I am, like stuff like that.
Right. Yeah. Well, and again, I feel like LVP was a perfect example of this. And whether you like LVP or not, whether you think she was in the wrong or not, I feel like everyone can agree that the entire rest of the cast was like very jealous of her success and her spin-offs and all of that. I mean, Lisa Rinna even made comments about it. Like, if she gets another spin-off, I'm suing, So I think that definitely plays a lot into it, how much money they're making, the gigs that they're getting off of the Housewives, the endorsement deals they're getting, all of that, I think it plays a lot into it.
And yeah, when it comes to LVP, for example, it wasn't like LVP was being favored out of the blue. She really brought something. She not only brought something to the show, she then had a spinoff, which was a successful spinoff. And so she's bringing double the money into the network. Of course, they're going to favor her a little more because she's making the money.
Right, exactly. And I think also, as that progressed, she got better at what she did. And especially as she was, executive producing Vanderpump Rules, I think she started to play that role more on Beverly Hills, and whether the other women liked it or not, and whether production asked her to or not. But at the end of the day, I mean, that's her job and she was doing her job. And I think the other women just didn't like that she was really good at her job. But yeah, I mean, I definitely can think of a lot of other cities too, where a lot of jealousy came into it. I mean, I think going all the way back in New York with the original fight with Jill and Bethany, I think a lot of that was jealousy on Jill's part, because Bethany quickly became the breakout star of the show. And I think that was really unexpected to the rest of the women, because she was single, she was broke. Like, what was she bringing to the show compared to the rest of them, But she just took off, and now she's like the most successful of any housewife.
Right. The other day I did an episode with Heather Michelle from Madame's Hoes and Gigolos from that podcast. Mm-hmm. And it was all about the various businesses, like the wine businesses that these housewives did. And what a lot of people, including myself, didn't realize, that actually the Real Housewives of OC was the first to have sort of a storyline where the business revolved around a drink, and that drink never took off. But then Bethany was the first one to actually do it and succeed, and then became basically the prototype for these other women, you know?
Well, and it's so interesting too, because I think, Bethany is maybe the only one really that was able to do it successfully and have some longevity in it. Like her products, she doesn't own Skinny Girl anymore. She sold it, but like that was an actual brand that you can go into the stores and you can see it, and with so many of the other wives, their products are truly just for a storyline. And that's why we hear about it for one season and then it's never talked about again. The product doesn't exist. I think of, in Orange County, like you said, I think of Vicki Gunvalson, and she did her bacon vodka, which I would have bought that, and it's nowhere. It's not a thing. She and Tamara had Wines by Wives at one point. Like Heather Dubrow, who I love, no shade to Heather Dubrow, she's my queen, but like she had a champagne line that nothing came from it. So it's really, I think, for a storyline.
Right. And then there's other. How long have you been watching? Like, for example, have you been watching Atlanta for a long time? Or
so I first started watching The Real Housewives, I want to say in like 2014 or 2015. So I was definitely way behind the show. Orange County had already been out for, close to a decade, like for a long time. And so I just this was kind of when binge watching was first becoming a thing. I invented binging. I sat down and over a week watched all of Orange County, all of them, all of Atlanta, all of New York, all of Beverly Hills. So at this point, I have seen every season of every city. And my favorites, like Orange County, I think it's what I started with. And there's a chunk in the middle from season 6 to 11 or 12, which I just think is like the best Housewives has ever been. And so I've rewatched those seasons probably like 4 or 5 times, you know?
And the reason I ask that is because remember for a hot second when Nene Leakes actually had a legitimate acting career?
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah, she was big. She was on a sitcom and she was on Glee. She had a lot of guest spots. And we've actually talked about this on our podcast, how she could have been huge. She could have been like a star. I mean, she really could be a star right now, an actress in movies and stuff, but she kind of missed her moment, you know?
Yeah, because my point with this was she was really good, actually.
Yeah.
She, like, and Ryan Murphy, like, she was part of the Ryan Murphy universe for a while. And I wonder what happened with that, because he's notorious for using, like, once you're one of his people, he will
You've got to
figure out a place for you.
He'll write a character for you and everything. Yeah. I mean, I think it maybe goes back to what we saw of her on the last season. I think she got a very big ego. I think that she thought that she was too big for all of it. I mean, truly, I'm sure that she gave off those same vibes, you know, whether she's on a housewife set or whether she's on the set of Glee. I can't imagine that she was necessarily easy to work with, because from what we saw and what we've heard from all of the other women, and what we've heard from production and Bravo, like, that's not the case, you know?
Right. And it's, you know, so here's a question for you, because see, I do my show and I know no housewives yet. So I have no problem with saying what I say and not feeling bad about it, because I don't know them. How is it once they do your show, or you know them, or you personally like them? How does that affect your reporting?
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, okay, so here's the thing. When we're interviewing the housewives, I am like such a kiss ass. Like, no matter who I'm talking to, I'm just like, you're my queen, which, like, obviously isn't always the truth.
Right.
but you know, you've gotta be nice. Like, I don't want to bring them on our show and like, you know, make them feel weird or uncomfortable. That's not what I'm here to do. I'm not like some like investigative journalist who's like really asking the hard-hitting questions. This is Real Housewives. So when they come on the show, it's light, it's fun. Based off of how they are on the show, I mean, that might sway me a little bit. Like Tamra, for example, I always loved Tamra, so it didn't change my mind about her. But like being on the show with her, I like her so much more now, because I feel like I got to know her and I connected with her on a more personal level than just seeing her on the show. So now, like, I will never talk shit about Tamra. Like, I always will defend her no matter what, you know. Not to say that I don't think that she's ever been problematic or ever done anything, you know, wrong or acted inappropriately. Like, of course she has, but she just is great. And now I've got her back, you know? Leanne, on the other hand, like when we had Leanne on, we gave her a lot of opportunities to kind of talk about, you know, her whole racism scandal from last season and address it. And I mean, we kind of tried to guide her into like apologizing and addressing it in a way that might give her a little bit of redemption. She didn't bite. She kind of doubled down on what she had always said. So for her, like, yeah, she was on the show and she was lovely. And I've also met her in real life and she is lovely. But because of that interaction, like, I have no problem, you know, saying like, yeah, Leanne is really problematic, you know?
Right. And like, for example, with me, it's Lisa Vanderpump, because I live in LA. For a long time, I lived in West Hollywood, and I lived within walking distance of Sir and Pump. And as a matter of fact, like, my husband and I, our first date was at Pump. So,
cool. Yeah.
And so every morning I would go on a walk, and every morning I would walk past Ken. And Ken would always be the first one to say, good morning, good man. And so, of course, so now I'm like, well, he's nice. Like, he said good morning to me, so I can't diss him.
Yeah,
and
no, I get it.
And like with Lisa, for example, she was always at Pump, or, I would go to Pump more than the others, but she was always there. And I would always see how she treated the fans. And she was always like really nice to the fans. And so, for me, I'm like, well, no matter what she does, I see how she treats the fans when the cameras aren't on, and she's really nice to them. So I've got to, have her back.
Yeah, no, totally. I lived in Hollywood for 5 years. And so I was out in West Hollywood all the time. And same thing, I would cross paths with her, Guillermo. I ran into Ken a couple times, and they were always just like very, very lovely. And they've done so much for the community, and they've done so much for the city of Los Angeles, and for this, for the city of West Hollywood. And no, I totally agree. I don't know. This might be, this is a controversial opinion, not might, it definitely is, but I was always team LVP. I know a lot of people hated her. I always thought she got like a really, really bad rap from the rest of the girls. I feel like they really tarnished her image. I think there were some ladies on that show that are far more manipulative than Lisa Vanderpump ever was.
Oh God, yeah. Erica Jane.
Erica, Lisa Rinna, even I think Eileen Davidson was a manipulative mastermind. I've rewatched some of those reunions when it was like Lisa Rinna and Eileen versus Vanderpump and Kyle or whatever. And Andy would like ask Rinna a question, and she'd start to answer, and Eileen would like squeeze her leg and then to make her stop talking and then answer for her, like on her behalf. And I noticed it once, and then I started like clocking it and realizing it was a pattern. And I was like, Eileen Davidson is like completely controlling this entire situation, and no one is noticing it. It's like, it's crazy.
They're actresses, they're actresses. So that's part of it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But my favorite part with Eileen, I just still I will always love when Kim was like, "You beast."
Yeah, that scene is just iconic, and that's what's so fantastic about reality TV is like, truly, you could not write that scene. You couldn't. If a scripted show even attempted to write a scene that was like that over the top, it would be laughable, and no one would believe it. And it'd just be like, the show is ridiculous. But when you see it on The Housewives, and these women, like, Kim Richards is this insane, it's so authentic and real and raw and crazy that it's just like, it's magic,
Now, do you watch VPR, Vanderpump Rules, as well?
I do, yeah.
So what is your feeling about what went down with the firings and the racism? Because I'm trying to, because this might be a little controversial.
Yeah.
I think all the racist stuff that went down on that show was bullshit. Getting rid of all of the racist people was the right thing to do. Any form of racism is bullshit. But I don't think that Lisa Vanderpump is a racist.
Yeah, I agree with that. And with that said, I don't necessarily think that any of the cast members are explicitly racist. I think that they're just ignorant and stupid. What I took issue with is just the kind of inconsistency across Bravo in how they were reprimanding people who have done inappropriate things. We've several housewives just in the past year say racist things.
Last night.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. On Atlanta. Exactly. So we see it all the time, and it's interesting. It's like, it seems like they're picking and choosing who to just kick to the curb and who to keep around to give like a redemption arc to. This is something that we also talked a lot about on our show. The edit that Brandy was given, the first few episodes back on Dallas this season. And it really was trying to make us all sympathize with her. And all of the ladies have their little talking head moments where they're just saying how great Brandy is, and she's not a racist. And, she's learned so much and blah, blah, blah. But like, Leanne didn't get that opportunity. The Vanderpump Rules girls didn't get that opportunity. And that's not to say that I think that they should have, but if Brandy's going to, then they should have, or vice versa. Right. If they're going to get kicked off, then Brandy should have been kicked off too. I just think that there's got to be a better way to handle this. I also think it presents a really great opportunity to address these topics and really hold these people accountable, because at the end of the day, we're not watching these shows because they're perfect people by any means. There has been problematic behavior for decades on reality TV. So I guess I am a little torn on whether it's like enough is enough, get the trash off the TV, or it's like that's why we're watching, and you use it like, yeah, if someone's going to be trash, then bring someone else in, like they did with Brandy and Tiffany, to really tell them what's up and show the audience why what they did was so problematic,
And I agree with you as far as I think it's got to be either you're going to give everybody the same punishment, and if you do something, racially insensitive, if you're going to fire one, you got to fire everybody. Some, like, even as much as I love Luann, I do.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
But if they're going to fire, somebody for being racist, you got to fire someone for being, wearing blackface.
Doing blackface, yeah. And it's not to say that I think Luann is racist, but what she did is blatantly racist, and she is blatantly ignorant,
Right.
So I feel like it was almost kind of glossed over with her too. It wasn't even really addressed that seriously.
As with last night on the Real Housewives of Atlanta, if you don't know, listeners, Kenya Moore came in full Native American, or actually not full Native American garb, sexy Native American garb.
Right.
And I do like that the other ladies all like pointed it out, especially Portia was like, whoa.
Yeah, and Drew too. Like what? And like, how come no one, like, why does no one else see that this girl Kenya is like a huge problem,
And like, I noticed today, I haven't heard anything about it other than on Clubhouse. I haven't heard anything in the news. I haven't heard anything, there's been no like announcement or anything.
Yeah. So, I saw one post about it because I watched the episode this morning, and so I saw a post about it before I watched the episode, but it was someone defending Kenya actually, and they were basically saying like, oh, come on, like if you're gonna get mad at Kenya, then you have to get mad at all of these people, and it had a bunch of photos of like all of the other Bravo stars who have dressed in Native American outfits, and the point is that it's like, just because they did it too, that doesn't make it right to do it now. And the other thing that Portia pointed out on the show is like, we're not doing that anymore. Like we've learned, like that's something that we used to do, but we have been corrected. So by presenting photos of, someone dressing up in a Native American outfit from 10 years ago, like that's not the same as comparing it to someone doing it today when we know better. And when the conversation right now in, the world, and especially within pop culture, is so, it's so focused on racial tensions, rightfully so. It's just like, girl, come on. So dumb.
And I look at it this way too. If it was something from 10 years ago, that saying that Oprah says, when you know better, you do better.
Exactly.
So 10 years ago, we were not as aware as we are now. We hadn't been through the things that we've been through this past year. If this was 10 years ago and you had it, like someone had a doubt, we would kind of go, laugh it off. But now we know better. We know better.
Yeah. And she knows better. Kenya knows better. She's a smart woman. So yeah, it was disappointing. It was kind of a weird choice coming from her. I don't know. I was surprised.
Now, how do you feel? So you've spoken to Tiffany Moon, which like I actually on Clubhouse, I got a chance to ask Tiffany Moon a couple of questions, and I love her.
Yeah. It's so fun when on Clubhouse, because it's still so new. Like we were both in a room earlier with Dave Quinn, and Bronwyn popped in just in the audience. I don't know if you saw that. She wasn't even up on the stage. She was just like listening to us for like 10 minutes.
Yeah. And it's, how do you feel what's going on with Tiffany Moon and Dallas right now?
I feel so bad for her. I get so exhausted watching the show and watching how the other women treat her and question her every move. And I can't imagine how exhausted she is living through it. Like we've said, racial inequalities and racial tensions, that's been a big conversation the past couple years. It's come up a lot on Bravo. Obviously, it's a big topic right now on Dallas. And we've talked about it a lot in the clubhouse rooms that we've both been in. Kendall and Will and I have talked about it on our podcast. It's like, it's a really weird situation. There's been this kind of reckoning of like a resurgence of the civil rights movement, which is so great and so needed. The way that Bravo is handling it is kind of odd, though. I feel like they have just, over the past few years, they're like, okay, we have to diversify, but the way we're going to do that is by throwing one person of color into the mix. We saw it, in Beverly Hills, they dropped in Garcelle. We see it in Dallas, they drop in Tiffany. And the problem with that is then all you're doing is drawing attention to the fact that A, that person is a minority, right? And B, that like you're kind of automatically forcing it to be them against everyone in a way. The thing that I've also found really interesting is that ultimately when you have one minority in a sea of white women, and the show is kind of driven by the commentary of these women. Like, for a second, we hear about the edit all the time. I'm a firm believer that like the way a housewife is going to come across on the show isn't going to be based off of how she tries to present herself or how production tries to present herself. It's going to be based off of what the other women are saying. Whatever I do doesn't matter. If the other 6 women are all saying this one thing about me, that's what the audience is going to hear, because that's what all of the talking heads are going to be saying. So if you drop in a minority and then there's 6 other white women who are just talking about how weird this Asian girl is, ultimately the show is still through the lens of a white person, judging a minority. You know what I mean?
The thing is, on Dallas too, it's almost like, I don't want to use the word celebrating, because it's not like they'll do something racist and then Cameron will get a cutesy little talking head, almost like they're kind of rewarding it in a way, because it's like, oh, well, look at how silly we are. And that is the editing.
Yeah. Making the jokes about, how eating the chicken feet, comparing it to eating dog food, stuff like that. It's just, especially in Dallas, these women are really, really ignorant. They're not like in some of the other cities. There are problematic characters in every city, but in a lot of these other major cities, I look at Beverly Hills in particular, there's a lot of issues with these Beverly Hills women, but one thing that not a single one of them is stupid. They're all really smart, and almost to their detriment. Maybe that's why sometimes the show is so contrived in Beverly Hills. But they're smart. They've all worked. They've all, whether it's, being a performer or being on a movie set, they're well-traveled. They've worked with people from all walks of life. They're not ignorant to the world. Meanwhile, in Dallas, they're all so ignorant. All of these women, they don't have real jobs. They went from their parents' house to the sorority house to their husband's house. They literally only know white people. So they can't even grasp the fact that the reason why Tiffany is different is because of race and culture. They literally just think, why is she so weird? Right. And that, I think, is part of the problem. Tiffany said it best, if you're uncomfortable, that's on you. I can't change that I'm Asian, Right. The problem is that these women aren't even recognizing that the reason why they're uncomfortable is because she's Asian.
Right. And the thing is that I think with Dallas, the scene that made me angry was when Brandy confronted Tiffany and it was like, I can't be myself because you're here.
Yeah, well, because one, it's really unfair. It puts a really weird weight onto Tiffany that she doesn't deserve at all. She's somehow in control of, how you feel in a room. But also, the big red flag for me is so you're uncomfortable because you can't be racist. I don't know. It was just a really weird response. And it also didn't show me that she had learned her lesson. Had she learned her lesson, she would be like, Tiffany, I'm so glad that you are here. I want to take this opportunity to become a better person. Thank you for being my friend. And thank you for showing me grace, not oh, I feel weird now because I said racist things about Asians and you're Asian. So can you leave because I don't want to offend you. Like, no, just don't be offensive.
You would think that she would learn that. She went to racist rehab.
Which like, I didn't even realize that was a thing. So weird. I've never heard of a racism rehab. But if she did go there, she should ask for a refund.
So, and the thing is with Tiffany, I think that I love her on the show. I think she's a good addition to the show. But after talking to her on Clubhouse, the vibe I got, and she didn't say anything, this is just my vibe, is I'm not sure if she's going to come back next season.
Yeah, I think for her to come back, well, first of all, we don't even know if Dallas will come back at all. The ratings this year have been terrible, and they've never been good. So I just hope it comes back, period, because I do like Dallas. So if it does come back, I think that they need to recast, bring some new girls on and base it around Deandra and Tiffany, because they are the ones that the fans are connecting with. They are the ones that are more open-minded and are a little bit more in alignment with, I think, the ideologies of the fan base. And that's not to say that, we don't love our GOP housewives, like people love Ramona, but I mean, an entire cast based up, of these really conservative Christian white women, it's a lot. And so I would love to see them bring in first of all, some more minorities, some more people of color. There are a lot of Asian people in Dallas. So there
are a lot of Latin. It's Texas.
Yeah, exactly.
Where are the Latin people other than Carrie? There's more than one.
And Carrie is also the most white passing Hispanic woman that I maybe have ever seen. And that's not to negate her culture or her heritage, but she is still white passing, and that does affect, how you are treated. So it's not the same as what Tiffany is going through. It's not the same as, what, other people of color would go through on the show. So I hope that they can diversify, and I hope that they can bring in some people that, are maybe friends with Tiffany and Deandra already, and mix it up a little bit.
Well, and it's so funny because the person who surprised me in a good way was Mama D. When they were talking about Tiffany, and Mama D's like, wait a minute, she has a real job. She's saving lives. These other women are going shopping. That's not a job. And that's not stress.
Right, exactly. I could not wrap my head around the pizza party and how they were like so offended that she, said the party is going to end at 10:30. To me, if one of my friends, first of all, if one of my friends had any job and they said, hey, I've got an early morning tomorrow, let's just like make it an early night, I would not have a problem with that. But especially if they're a doctor, I would be like, yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that was weird. I feel like it's one of those things where it's hard. You don't want to automatically go to race. You don't want to just automatically say, oh, they're racist and that's why they're being mean to her. You could try and justify it and say, oh, she's the new girl, so she's getting hazed a little bit. But when so many of the things that they're talking to her about, like I said, are cultural things, like, the way she hosts a party, the food that she eats, like all of these things, they're based off of her culture and how she was brought up. So it's hard for me not to just go get those alerts in my head, like, racist.
Yeah. I mean, because there's certain things like, okay, let's be honest. I wouldn't eat chicken feet. I wouldn't. But there's a way to say no, thank you. Right. Or you take it and just, kind of get rid of it or give it to the puppy under the table or whatever. You don't have to insult the woman's culture.
Right. Well, and especially too, like she said, I don't think Tiffany would have even pushed the chicken feet or any of it had it not been the group of women that it was. I mean, she said it best, like these girls, Brandy and Stephanie, are like the prank queens. I mean, how many times have we seen them run around, chase someone with a dildo or, show up to a party with poop on their head? Carrie at the party right before this was shoving Tiffany in the pool and literally pouring tequila down her throat. So like, I get it. That's like the vibe of the group. If I went to a party with them, they were all like, peer pressuring me into stuff and I was a team player and went along with it, then when I host a party, you better believe believe I'm going to do the same thing back, you know? And I feel like that's what Tiffany was trying to do with the chicken feet, with the crickets. Like it was trying to kind of, you know, connect with them on a level that clearly missed the mark. But their response to it was just like weird, especially with Cam. I'm having such an issue with Cameron this year because
such a problem with her.
And I used to like her, but she, you know, she's kind of touted herself as queen of etiquette, and she, you know, she like social, like all of the social rules. That's kind of her big thing, is like the rules of the engagement. And so it's weird to me that then when Tiffany is like, okay, these are my rules for my engagement, Cameron's like, oh my God, like that's crazy. Like I'm sure she has told her kids, when you go to a friend's house, you follow the rules. If they have, you know, whatever the rules of the house are. So it's weird that then like she herself wouldn't abide by that.
And especially since this is a party in the middle of COVID, and this is when COVID was even worse than it is now.
Right.
And so I could get, you know, she's a doctor. I could understand why she didn't want them walking in her living room with her shoes. Totally. The shoes are the germiest thing on the planet, you know? Yeah. I could get why she wouldn't want them in the house. It's COVID. And this was before, you know, I think this was before even we had the green light to like do stuff outside. Yeah. Even.
Yeah. I mean, they were filming like last summer. I mean, this was when COVID was still, you know, pretty fresh.
Right. Right. So, okay. What do you think about Salt Lake City?
Oh my God. I was obsessed. I loved Salt Lake City. I honestly think maybe the best premiere season of any house. Maybe Beverly Hills was like an iconic first season with You Stole My Goddamn House. But no, it's such a great season. I really like all of the ladies brought something really special and really unique. Like there were a few in the beginning that I was just like, I don't know, I'm not connecting with them. But by the end, I really was like, don't change a thing. This cast is perfect, you know?
What do you think about Jen Shaw?
So she was actually supposed to come on our show. Like right at the beginning, like right when the show had premiered, right when Salt Lake City premiered. And we were like sitting around, we had the Zoom screen up. It was like the day of, you know, and she never showed. And so then we texted with her and she was like, I'm so sorry.
Wait, she was a no-show? Like hey,
she was an actor. She was a no-show. So then we texted her and, you know, tried to set something else up, and it just never really came to be. So I'm either going to try and get her again on our show, or I'm just going to prank call her live on our show, because we still have her phone number. Yeah. But either way, I got to do something. I got to poke the bear a little bit, because, I don't know. It's like, I feel like so many people thought while we were watching the show, like, oh, this isn't really her. This is put on for the cameras. I think we're finding out now, like, no, that's actually.
Oh, she's worse.
Yeah.
She's worse.
Yeah. Absolutely.
With tapes.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you guys were nice about her not showing, because I'm going to call myself out. I was having computer problems today, so I was like 15 minutes late, and Blake was perfectly nice about it.
Yeah, I'm not going to prank call you. Don't worry. We were nice, and she was nice. She was really sweet. Like she would never said anything mean or was like rude to us. And I don't think that she like intentionally like scheduled it to bail. I think something probably really did come up. But at the time too, the show was so fresh. They weren't like big on social media yet. So I'm hoping that we didn't miss our opportunity to get her. I'd love to get her on. Like I said, obviously I would be super, super nice, just because like she's terrifying and I don't want her to like scream at me. But no, I liked her on the show. I did. I think that she's like kind of crazy, but like I said, I liked all of them. Like truly, I really liked all of them on the show. The only one that was maybe my like least favorite, and it was really only because I thought she was maybe kind of boring, was Meredith Marks. But even her, like she had some fashion moments that I was really into. So yeah, none of them disappointed.
Because even, you know, I did have some issues with Jen Shaw at the reunion, like, you know, equating herself to a Black woman and that whole thing. Yeah. But that being said, I too feel like don't change a thing with this cast. This cast is, it's perfect right now the way it is.
Yeah.
Because because at the end of the day, even Mary Cosby brought it in the reunion.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Well, and again, some weird racial things said by Mary Cosby also. And again, I don't think that either of them are racist. I think that we really are just kind of seeing a window into the world of a woman of color living in a predominantly white area like Salt Lake City. And that is a very unique it's a unique life to live, to be a Black woman running a church in Salt Lake City. I mean, that's crazy. So I don't know. I think in this case, I want them to stay. I think the things that both of them said at the reunion were problematic, but I think that it's an opportunity for us to see a glimpse of the world and to maybe see them, learn from it and grow from it. Yeah, really interesting though. The season was really interesting. The dynamics were really interesting. I think the thing too that I loved so much about the reunion, which kind of surprised me, is I was nervous because they filmed the reunion like a year later. So I was like, oh, is it going to be kind of weird? Is it going to feel choppy or disconnected? I feel like there were so many new layers because of that. Like the dynamics had all changed. So I feel like from the finale to the reunion, it was just like everything had exploded because they'd had a full year of like watching the show back, becoming famous, talking shit about each other on social media. It was just crazy.
And the thing is with Mary Cosby too, as problematic as she was with her views on like black on black,
right,
racism, that's a thing.
Right, exactly.
Skin lightening is a thing. Hello, Michael Jackson.
Right.
And it is an issue that there are some Black people, colorism is a thing. So actually, even though what she did say, even though it is problematic, that actually at the same time shows some of the psychological effects of being a recipient of racism, being a recipient of institutionalized racism. That I'm sure I will bet that is why she thinks the way she thinks.
Absolutely. And again, I mean, I can't imagine any of it. I am a cisgender white man. So all of this, everything that I comment about in terms of racial disparities and racism, it's all from the lens of an outsider just trying to learn and understand. But I can't imagine what that would be like, to be a Black woman and to live in Salt Lake City. Like it is so whitewashed. I'm not just talking about the snow. So like it would, yeah, I mean, I totally understand why that would, mess with someone's psyche and their self-worth and their how they view their own community. Yeah, I totally get it. But again, I think, another example of like, don't boot her off the show because she said something problematic. And I agree. Same thing with Jen Shaw. Keep him around. Let's see how this plays out, because this is a real window into how people think and act,
Right. And like, you don't think Jen Shaw's in trouble as far as them getting rid of her, do you?
No, she's definitely filming. They're all filming. She's posted a few times, where you can see like a camera in the background or whatever. So they're all definitely filming. I don't think that they'll change the cast at all. If anything, they might add someone or maybe add a friend or two, but none of the main six are going anywhere.
So now with New Jersey, and this might be a controversial opinion, I don't know, I think it's time for New Jersey to have a shakeup.
Yeah. I mean, I can't think of any other time in Housewives where they've had the same cast. I think this is now the third or fourth season in a row where there hasn't been any changes at all. And I like this cast a lot, but I think it's, definitely time to mix it up a little bit. I think there are a few players that are, maybe have run their course. I want to get back to the family drama. Like that's what Jersey was at its core. Right. It was all about, the connections between families, and that made Jersey special and different. And I want them to bring that back. I mean, obviously we have Melissa and Teresa, but I don't know, their dynamic at this point, I think is so skewed for the camera. Like, I don't think that it's a natural dynamic. I think they both kind of are just like, we're on a show together, so it has to be what it is. Like, we don't see them fighting like they used to. We don't see the same types of fights like when the Loritas were on, or when the Manzos were on, or any of that. Like, I need that back. I need it.
Because the problem is, for me, so other than watching the show for Margaret, who is my favorite, and Dolores, I do like Dolores a lot, I'm watching it for the husbands. That's a problem. Yeah, definitely. The husbands are super fun. They're so funny. Like, I love that element of it. I love Marge. But yeah, I mean, when New Jersey broke, like, it was so unique in the sense that we were getting that kind of like, I mean, it was all about the families, and they were all so connected. And so the drama is so much more raw and more real and more meaningful when they're family than when they're friends. So, you know, it was such an important part of Jersey that I want them to get back to. Now, what do you think about the whole Jackie thing going on? Jackie Teresa thing going on right now?
So I'm team Jackie, like, in terms of this fight, but I'm not team Jackie in terms of like housewives. Like, I don't think she's a great housewife. I don't think she's like great on the show at all. But I think the opposite, I think with Teresa, I think Teresa is like a terrible human. I think she is dumb as rocks, but I think she is so important to the housewives, you know? Right. So I feel very differently about them both.
Well, and it's so funny because I'm team Jackie, but I'm team Jackie only from the position of being a married person and having a rumor out, because I know that if someone dropped a rumor like that about my husband at my party, I would be pissed too. Yeah. And I would confront them too. Yeah. But that's the only reason I'm siding with her.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, it's like, I just want Teresa to like be the real villain she was meant to be. Like, if you're going to do this, if you're going to go spread the rumor, then own it. You know, even if it's just in your confessionals, be like, yeah, she had it coming. She messed with me last season, so I'm taking her down. You know, that I think would be like iconic. But what she does, she walks around spreading this rumor, and then she plays dumb, and she's like, I didn't do anything. Like, what I did wasn't wrong. And it's like, no, like, if you're going to be bad, then be bad, you know?
Right. And if she would have said that, what you just said, I would have loved it even more.
Yeah. Because it would have been, we would have been like, damn, Teresa, like, that is like a baller move, you know? But what she did is like dropped a grenade and then like ran away and tried to say it wasn't me. And it's like, we all saw that it was you. And now you just look dumb, you know?
And P.S., if you're going to spread a rumor and make up a rumor, even if you have to make up the receipts, have receipts.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Like, she had no receipts. It's like, come on, if you're gonna make this up, then you need to go there.
Right. Well, also just from like an optics standpoint, like being the girl that's running around at a party and telling the same rumor to everyone at that party, it's just like not a good look. Like, I feel like she could have, if she was a smarter housewife or just like a smarter person in general, she could have played this game a lot better. You know, I feel like if it was like an LVP, she would have been dropping those seeds like, you know, sporadically throughout the season and, you know, really like planting them. But Teresa didn't do that. And it was, it fell flat, and Jackie was clearly in the right. Not that I think it's the best to use like someone's kid as an analogy, but it was so obviously an analogy. And like, you know, before the scene was even over, like before the cameras dropped, she had like made it very clear to everyone there, it was an analogy. It's not true.
Right.
Gia doesn't do coke, everybody, you know? So like, I don't think that what Jackie did was anywhere on par with what Teresa did.
Oh, if Teresa was an LVP, Teresa would have had either Dolores or Jen do her dirty work, and the entire season we would have thought that it was Dolores or Jen starting this shit until the reunion, when we'd find out that no, it was actually Teresa that masterminded the whole thing.
Exactly. And I think we got it like a taste of that last season with Teresa, with the like pull her hair moment. It
Right.
was kind of that like, oh my God, Teresa masterminded this whole thing. But like in reality, she didn't mastermind it. Like it wasn't planned. It wasn't something that she like, like thought about. It was just something that she said on the spur of the moment and it happened. So like, yeah, she instigated it, but like, do I give her credit for like creating that drama over the course of the season? Absolutely not.
And you know what I would love, actually, like if we were to do a revamp, yeah, I would love to have the Manzos back.
Yeah, me too. It would be great. It would be really great.
And especially now that, all of this bad blood and history has gone down between Teresa and the Manzos. And then we were even a few years away from that. Like that's had time to kind of simmer down a little bit.
Yeah.
I would love to kind of have like a reunion season and we're all back,
Yeah, that would actually be really fun to do across the cities. I mean, I would get a kick out of seeing, a reunion season of OC and bring back, Vicky and Gina Keogh and all of the old ones and see what they're up to. Even if it's just like a sit down and get them.
Joe.
Yeah. I think that would be really fun. I think especially with the cities that have been around for so long and have cycled through so many wives, it would be great to see what they're up to again and to like get them in a room with, a former foe and see what happens.
Phaedra and Candy.
Yeah. It would be awesome. It would be awesome. I mean, Phaedra with all of them, I'd be interested to see how she interacted with Candy, with Portia, with Kenya. I mean, all of them.
Well, okay. And this is, I've mentioned this on Bravo pages before and have been admonished for it. But I do think it's time for Phaedra to be forgiven. If you let Vicky be involved in a cancer scam and not fire her, you can give Phaedra another shot.
Yeah, I agree. Also just kind of thinking back on that whole thing, I think there was more to that than what we saw. I never really thought that Phaedra just like pulled that out of her ass. I don't think that it's true, but I think that maybe that was some like producer influence stuff there.
And I've also heard that like Andy loves Candy. Like she's one of his favorite people.
She's one of the highest paid.
Yeah. And her spinoffs are always successful. Her spinoffs are always successful. Her spinoffs always bring really good ratings. I even heard him mention once that whenever Heidi's on, did I say Heidi? Whenever Candy is on Watch What Happens Live, it's always their highest episodes. So Candy brings in money to the network.
Yeah, she was actually on Watch What Happens for 4th of July, and I was in the virtual audience. So,
wow,
it was super fun. Yeah, she was on with Lonnie Love, and I got to ask a question to Lonnie. But interesting fact, and you might have heard this. I think this is like legend in the Bravoverse, but all of the questions are given to you by the producer. So I didn't get to ask something.
I did not know that.
Yeah, they told me what to ask, and it was something about. I guess Lonnie Love is on the show The Talk, or no, she's on the Real. And I don't watch it, and so I was asking a question about some drama that happened with her and one of the other hosts. I like literally had no idea what I was asking about, and I had to recite it probably like a dozen times beforehand because I was like, I don't know what I'm saying. Like this is crazy.
It was probably about Tamar Braxton, probably.
Oh yes, that is what it was. Yeah,
because they ended up kind of voting her off the island.
Yeah,
and. Wait, what shows do we still? Oh, what are you thinking of Summer House right now?
I'm actually not watching this season of Summer House. I'm so far behind. I'm several seasons behind on Summer House, so I need to catch up. I watched Southern Charm. I watched Vanderpump Rules. Summer House is one that maybe I feel like I'm hearing that the new season is really good.
It's a good season. Yeah, I've been watching it, and this is, I think, the hands down one of the best seasons ever.
Okay, cool. Because like the first few seasons, I didn't get like sucked in, so maybe I'll give it a go again.
And I think here's the difference, because now, and I've said this and other people have said this too, Summer House is what Vanderpump Rules wishes it could be. And I think part of the reason why is because on Vanderpump Rules, none of them work there anymore. And, they're not interesting enough to carry a show without them working there. They're way too old to be acting the way that they act now. We all know that they have pretend jobs. Whereas on Summer House, they actually all have real careers. Right. And this season, what made it better is that they're all quarantined together. So they can't leave. They're all in the house. They're quarantined together. They can't leave. And then they're working and doing their daily lives along with being quarantined in the house.
Yeah, well, there's that added element of everyone like sleeping in the same quarters, you know, like Real World or Big Brother. And like, that's a format that works so well because ultimately when you cannot leave and you're in a fight, like that's going to be so much more dramatic than, you know, we see on the Housewives shows or whatever, when they just like get up and storm out of a dinner or leave early on a cast trip. Like when they're all stuck in a house together, there's nowhere to go. Right. So that's always super compelling to watch.
And then there's a definite villain. And even with the villain, it's one of these. So like with Vanderpump Rules, they were icky to each other. And other than Tom and Ariana, they were pretty much all icky people and came across as icky people, as opposed to Summer House, where they can be icky to each other, but they still other than one person, Hannah, all the rest of them come across as likable people. So you still like them.
Yeah, I actually heard the other day someone made a really great analogy where they said that the cast of Vanderpump Rules thought or thinks that they're the cast of Friends, when in reality they're the cast of Seinfeld. Like they're not the cast that you love and want to sit with. They're a group of people that you watch because they're terrible people, you know?
Right.
And I don't think that they're not in on that. Like certainly not Jax. he like certainly doesn't know that he is like hated, you know?
Right. And I'm wondering do you think Vanderpump Rules is coming back?
I've heard it's coming back. You know, it's going to be still surrounding the restaurant. So they're waiting until they can open the restaurant up to full capacity, or at least, you know, more than 25. But yeah, I think that it'll just kind of be based around the Toms and Katie and Ariana and then like a group of new people. I don't know. It's so interesting because it had such a fast fall from grace. I remember like 2 years ago, or like the season before last, there was a huge article in Vanity Fair about how Vanderpump Rules was the best reality show on television. And then the very next season was like everyone, the entire Bravo fandom was just like, this show is done. Get it off the air. So I don't know what happened. I don't know if they can have a redemption.
Well,
they've lost like more than half the cast.
I can tell you why. Okay, so basically, when all of the racist stuff started coming out, initially they would double down, and then they were so dumb they didn't know when to shut up, because they would every week it was a new person doubling down on this.
Right.
Plus, you know, with the Stassi and Faith thing, that was definitely, and for those of you listeners who don't know, Stassi and Kristen called the cops on one of the Black members of the cast because they saw a picture of a Black woman who looked nothing like her, by the way, who was accused of ripping a guy off. And so they called the cops on this woman. And I think if they would have apologized, and if they would have apologized to her, and not only apologized, if they would have said, hey, we know what we did was bad. It was wrong. We are sorry. We are going to fix this and do right. And, you know, volunteer or donate to a Black charity or get more involved and educate ourselves about Black causes, I think it would have eventually blown over and they wouldn't have lost their jobs. But they doubled down. They never, I think to this day, Stassi has not apologized to fans.
Yeah.
Still. And I think that had a lot to do.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I mean, it was also just like really, really unfortunate timing for them, or maybe the perfect timing for everyone else. I don't really know. But I mean, when this news came out, it was just like, you know, at the perfect moment for them to lose their jobs. You know, it was just in the height of Black Lives Matter having a big resurgence again after a couple years. I mean, George Floyd had just been murdered. It was just like wrong place, wrong time for those girls. I agree. Had it been handled differently or had it been different timing, it would have gone much differently. But with that said, I don't necessarily know if I think it's a bad thing that it went the way it did.
No, it's time for it to go because, and I've always said this about Vanderpump Rules. I think that Vanderpump Rules should be more like be it Below Deck, where you have a couple of the main people. Like it used to be Kate, but Kate is no longer with the show.
Right.
But you have Hannah and you have the other Chief Stew.
Yeah, and the captains,
right.
Captain Lee.
And then everybody else, right. And then everybody else is a revolving cast.
Right.
Because you've lived in LA, you know that there are a million wannabe actors, writers, models who are thirsty enough, who would love to be on this show.
Oh yeah.
Definitely. There are hundreds of thousands, and it would be easy to find kids to do it.
Yeah, well, and I mean, we even see it with the Housewives. I mean, the Housewives have kind of perfected the formula of, how to shake up a cast and how to reinvent the cast year after year. And I think the problem that Vanderpump Rules had is that they were never trying to reinvent the cast. They always wanted the same core people. They just wanted new floaters,
Right.
And we needed to get some like the few times that it worked when they brought someone new in was when that person actually infiltrated and became like, a full-time cast member, like a Lala,
Right.
But how many random people did they try before Lala broke through? And I don't
think Raquel.
Right, exactly. And it's like, that's not on production or Bravo or casting. I mean, that's on the group that's on Stassi and Jax and Tom and all of them. And because they really, and we saw so many times, they're like, no, we're an actual group of friends and you just can't be our friend, Right. Whereas with the Housewives, they're like, oh, we casted someone new, so I have to be their friend. Now I have to film with them. It's part of my job.
Right. And then another thing too, how can you be a restaurant in the middle of West Hollywood who does a pride float, but have no gay people in your cast?
Right.
And then when you do have the one transgender person in your cast, you all act transphobic and ice her out.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And the thing is that kind of tracks is what we're in March, almost April right now. They normally start filming in June anyway.
Yeah. Well, we would have had two. I mean, we would be going on a second new season. We should have gotten one last summer, and then we should have one this summer, and we're not. So, they're pretty far behind, which is interesting because the Housewives have continued filming. Like some of them, held off on filming for a couple months, but they're all going strong. So,
right, and then so who do we have left to talk about? Oh, Potomac.
Yeah.
So what did you think of last season?
I loved it. I thought it was a great season. I think it was probably Potomac's breakout season. I mean, they got the best ratings they've ever had. They were higher than Atlanta ratings, which is insane.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So Atlanta this year has dropped, and Potomac's last season, some episodes were higher than what Atlanta's getting now. So huge for Potomac. Really happy. Another cast where I know Monique said she's not coming back. I really wish that she would, and that the cast would have stayed the exact same.
Yes.
Obviously, I don't agree with violence, but again, it was one of those situations where it's like we've seen violence on so many of these shows. We have seen so many white cast members on these shows throw hands. So it was a little frustrating to see, the one time it happens on a black show, everyone at Bravo, including Andy Cohen, is like, this is not okay. It's like, did they say that when Stassi slapped Kristen, or when, Tom punched Jax? Or, I mean, it happens all the time. That when Joe Giudice and Joe Gorga were
a brawl
of each other. Yeah. So the whole notion of Bravo doesn't support violence, bullshit in my opinion. I wish that Monique would have filmed more with the other ladies, because I think that was the only thing that was missing as the season progressed, is just that resolution. But the reunion was incredible. So good.
And it's so funny that you mentioned the fighting, because, that fight made national news. And cut to on Summer House next week, there's going to be two of the male members are going to have a full on fist fight, like a brawl sort of a situation as well.
Right.
Nothing has been said. And the only reason we know it's going to happen is because it was on Coming Up Next Week.
Right. So they're advertising it. They're saying like, watch what happens, literally, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, I haven't heard of that. So there you go. Like it's such a double standard. It's really unfair. I also think that, you know, it's just, I don't know. I mean, we saw it on Atlanta too with Portia and Kenya. And again, the way that, I mean, granted, like, yeah, these are bad fights. Like, I'm not justifying it at all, but I'm saying like, come on, Andy and Bravo and whoever else, NBC, like you can't hold these women of color to this standard and say that you guys are so violent when all of your other shows have featured white people doing the exact same thing and it is never addressed.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, Teresa at one point shoved Andy, and it's like, it's like an iconic moment that they like re-air all like all best of moment all the time, you know?
She flipped a table.
Yeah. So none of the housewives are above violence by any means. But again, I mean, to my point way earlier, like we don't watch these shows because they're supposed to be, you know, perfect archetypes of people. We watch them because they are batshit crazy, and we want to see them do batshit crazy things, you know?
And just as a person of color who watches these shows, I do my dream with them would be for them just to go and do a sweep, get rid of all the racists and all that, and then we could just go back to the time when it was just a show with people just being crazy.
Yeah.
It's definitely turned into one of these things. It's like, God, I don't watch Bravo to get life lessons. I watch Oprah for that.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I think that when the housewives start fighting over like their like belief systems or like things that are like current events that are happening, like even when we saw at last season on Beverly Hills when they were talking about Brett Kavanaugh and, you know, him being, you know, appointed to the Supreme Court, like that stuff isn't as interesting to us as watching them just like go at each other. Like I want them to fight over like, you said this or like you called me that, you know, not about like their standings on political matters. It's like we get enough of that in the news. I fight with my like conservative dad enough to cover me. I don't need this on the Housewives, you know?
You know, I want them at dinner parties with Alison Dubois.
Right. Talking about like each other's marriages and stuff, not each other's like, you know, political beliefs.
Right. Alison Dubois puffing on, what was that she was puffing on? Like it was a
e-cigarette. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was like it was like the first prototype of an e-cigarette. It was like back in the day when they weren't a thing yet.
But they were huge. It was huge, right?
Which before Jules,
I still love her talking to Kyle going, your husband will never fulfill you. He's cheating on you. Yeah. Cut to months later, Camille's like, oh, well, I was sitting next to her. So I think that when she was talking to Kyle, she meant me.
Yeah. And I always really appreciated how Camille handled her divorce with a lot of grace and a lot of humor. She was like very funny about her divorce a lot, which I appreciated.
Well, I think Camille was the first successful Housewives pivot.
Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, she was literally branded like the most hated housewife in America her first season. And then she turned around and came back and was just like a fan favorite.
And then part of it too was then when you found out that, oh my God, she's going through this terrible divorce where her husband had another woman and all that, then it's like, oh, well, no wonder she was acting like that.
Right.
You know?
Totally. Yeah.
Anyway, Blake, how long have we been on this call?
Like an hour and a half or something.
Is there anything, I don't want to take up your whole day. Did we miss anything before? Did we cover everybody?
Well, I think I would love to ask you a question, if that's okay. Just my favorite question to ask any time I talk to a Housewives fan. Who is your all-time favorite housewife and who is your all-time least favorite housewife?
Okay. Don't write me, people. Okay, so my all-time favorite housewives, it's a tie between Luann
Okay.
and Phaedra.
Okay.
And runner-up is Sonia.
Okay. I get Sonia. It's interesting because both Luann and Phaedra, we like mentioned how they both have had some problematic moments, but like I agree that with both of them that they're like iconic housewives.
And this is why I rank Luann up there with the top, because a lot of people forget that Luann was a major housewife. Luann was demoted. Mm-hmm. And when Luann got demoted is when she became the Luann we love now.
Right.
Because a lot of people don't realize that when Luann's pivotal moment, or at least for me, was be cool, don't be all uncool.
Yeah.
And she was just a friend of. And got, so that I have respect for her for that.
Yeah, well, she's the only housewife in Housewives history who has been demoted to a friend of and then been re-promoted back up to a housewife.
Yeah.
Legend.
Yeah. And so I gotta give credit. Yeah. And Luann's another one. And we're gonna see this probably with the new season when they are gonna have a Black cast member.
Yeah.
I don't. Yes, she had her mess up with her blackface, and that was not cool, and I do not condone that. But I do not think Luann is racist either.
No, I think she's just very, very ignorant. Totally.
Yeah.
I truly, truly think, and I'm not trying to give her any sort of credit, what she did was awful, but I truly believe that she looked in the mirror and thought like, oh my God, my costume's great. Like, I don't think she thought there was any problem with it.
Doesn't make that right at all.
Right.
But one of the things that as a person of color watching these shows that sometimes I think where it gets a little muddled is separating the evil racist things that happen from the ignorant, you need to be educated.
Right.
You might not realize that this is racist, but it is, and let me educate you. And now that you know, do better things. Right,
exactly. I always say, not even just when talking about issues of race, but just with anything, it all comes down
homophobia.
Right. It all comes down with intent. If someone has the intent to be hurtful or hateful, then obviously that is what it is. But if someone's intent is genuine and they slip up, then, like you said, that's a time to educate, not a time to chastise.
And when it comes to Diana Ross, I mean, let's face it, Luann probably thinks she's just as famous as Diana Ross.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Just as talented.
Right. Because were you watching the season where she did the duet with Natalie Cole?
Yes. Yeah.
And she's like, I'm going to sing with Natalie Cole. And it's like, yeah, because you're on a show and you probably have a producer who was friends with Natalie Cole.
Right. And that Natalie Cole was like, this is the low point of my career.
Right.
I've hit rock bottom.
I've hit rock bottom. I'm singing with a duet with Luann.
Yeah. Okay. So then who is your least favorite?
Okay. So now is it only Housewives or Bravo?
Let's do Housewives specifically.
Okay. So, oh God. Okay. So my least favorite housewife, Alexis Bellino.
Oh, good choice. Yeah. She was so annoying. I hated her too.
Alexis Bellino. And I think the reason why is because remember when she was on the show and she claimed to be like uber super duper religious, but then she was oh wait, you know what? And can I amend my vote?
Yeah.
It's a tie between Alexis Bellino and Teddy.
Okay.
And yeah, my reason for disliking Alexis Bellino, I remember she portrayed herself as just like this religious, pious person, but came off as like this huge hypocrite.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Totally. She was insufferable.
and Teddy, because Teddy brought absolutely nothing to that show.
Yeah. And even when she tried to, she tried to stir up the dog drama and all of that. And it just like we're just like, you're so stale. You can't even do that right.
And what threw fuel on the fire, as I was telling you about Alexis Bellino, is I remembered the conversation that we had on Clubhouse this morning, where it was discovered that Teddy charges $200 for a cameo.
Yeah, I know. Not worth it. The only way that it would be worth it is if you like somehow tricked her into like doing a cameo where she like calls you a like fat piece of shit and tells you that you ate too many calories that day or something. Gives you the full what was her thing called? Like
it was what was it? The accountable something?
Yeah, she gives you the full accountability treatment.
You know what? I think Teddy has a new publicist. And the reason why I'm saying this is because all of a sudden, do you read Us Magazine at all?
Sometimes, yeah.
All of a sudden, for the past few months, every week is a new article about Teddy Mellencamp doing something.
It's weird.
Never exciting.
Yeah.
Never, Teddy Mellencamp rode a horse. Like, it's literally stuff like that.
Right. Yeah. No one cares.
No one cares. No one cares. Well, Blake, oh my God, this has been so fun.
Yeah, I had such a good time. Thank you so much for having me.
And please come back. I'll be on time next time.
No, I believe it. And I told you too. I want to read one of the Housewives books, and then we can talk about it because that would be so fun.
Hey, you know what? So I am just starting a book, and I don't know if you would be down for doing this, but I just started Shep's book.
Okay. Yeah.
Would you be down for reading Shep's book?
Yeah, for sure.
And here's a little secret. I'm doing it on Audible, and it's making it easier to deal with.
Yeah.
But would you be down for coming back in, like, let's say 3 weeks?
Yeah, definitely. For sure. I'm assuming it's like a pretty easy read.
Yeah. And it's not that long. On the, you know how Audible breaks it down with the amount of hours it is? It's like a 5-hour book. So that's not that long.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to.
So great. So it's a date. 3 weeks from today, we will be discussing Shep's tour de force. Now, Kate Casey, do you know Kate Casey?
I do, yeah.
Kate Casey has told me that the book is pretty good.
Okay.
So I'm still skeptical.
Yeah,
but this will be good.
How good the ghostwriter was, right?
Right. But this will be good because then I'll have someone to discuss it with or commiserate with.
Yeah, exactly.
So before we go, once again, how can the listeners find you, and tell us your podcast again?
Yeah. So the podcast is called The Church of Housewives. We are all over the internet. You can find us on Spotify, Apple, Google, anywhere you guys listen to podcasts. We are there. You can find us on social media at Housewives Amen. And then you can also find me personally. My name's Blake. My Instagram and all my social media, it's at Blake, but there's 7 A's in it. So if you said it, it'd be like at Blake.
Is that from Amy Winehouse?
No, I've literally had it forever. And it's just like, it's such an issue. I actually had to call my insurance this weekend because I couldn't get in to my insurance login. And they asked me what my username was. And I was like, well, it's BLAAAAAAAKE. And the guy paused and was like, wait, what?
Because you know the Amy Winehouse thing, right? Her husband was named Blake, and she'd be like, Blake!
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's what you can think of when you search for me. But I love to connect with Housewives fans. So yeah, definitely follow me, send me a DM, and we can chat.
Thank you. And thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much, Les.